Time to talk politics. Major news out of the Supreme Court ending affirmative action. Chief Justice Roberts, writing for the conservative majority, not only has implications for diversity in education, but also the workplace. Here to discuss this and more is Caroline Heldman, professor of critical theory and social justice at Occidental College. Busy morning. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning, Giselle. Very busy morning.
So the High Court ends affirmative action. This affects college admissions, but also perhaps diversity in the workplace. What's the biggest takeaway? What should we be looking out for?
Well, we should be looking out for drops in the number of Black, Latin, and Native American students who are enrolled in higher education. As we know from the 8 states that have already outlawed affirmative action, it has profound implications. It means that the overrepresentations of white Americans in higher education will continue. And I think it's important to note that the court did not outlaw legacy-based affirmative action. And we know that at elite Ivy League institutions, 10 to 25% of those seats are going to legacy folks. And so what we see is essentially 2 big steps back for racial progress in this country. And as you note, it will have implications for the workplace, because if we don't have diversity in higher education, we will have less diversity in the leadership ranks in the workplace and employment.
Yeah, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson slams the court, let them eat cake, obliviousness to racism. The other dissenters shared that opinion. What happens next?
Well, what we will see is colleges across the United States scrambling to try to figure out what they can consider and what they can't consider. I would say that I think it's important to now very seriously consider the other biases that are set in place that are benefiting white students, that are advantaging them in a biased fashion. And again, this legacy approval, as well as folks who are able to contribute money. We know that there is a long legacy of socioeconomic bias that benefits white people. And so we need to look at why it is that these institutions continue to benefit white Americans in the way that they do.
Mm-hmm. Another ruling, they remanded the religious rights case back to the lower courts, basically a win for the postal worker who brought this case, who wanted off on Sundays. How significant?
Well, the court was trying to strike a balance between religious freedom and also the rights of corporations, or in this case, a federal agency, to deliver packages. And so they essentially punted the case, but it's significant in that it means that religious freedoms may now have a foothold that they did not previously have in courts that were not such a super majority conservative.
Right. We'll keep on this all the day to get more on really the implications of what this all means. Shifting now to politics, let's start with the threat to Putin in Russia, making public appearances to show he's still in control of the country. But there are reports implicating his own military top brass, Caroline, that may have been privy to the Wagner mutiny. What should we be looking out for here? And what is the Biden administration watching closely?
Well, it's interesting, this action by Yevgeny Prigozhin. We're not sure if it was a coup against Putin or whether it was a disagreement amongst warlords. It's probably the latter, because Prigozhin is still alive and he's not imprisoned. At the end of the day, I think the Biden administration is rightfully very concerned about who has control of nuclear capabilities in Russia. And I think it's naive to think that if Putin that if he is toppled, or that he's even weak at this point, but whoever comes next is going to be any better. I know, for example, Prigozhin has been supporting warlords throughout African countries, as well as running disinformation campaigns. So be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, the devil we know may be better than the devil that we know. We do not know. All right, let's turn stateside to the Trump investigators. They're ratcheting up every investigation here. Let's start with that audio tape that has the former president admitting to holding up classified documents. How damning? What's your take?
It's very damning. I think anybody who listens to the tape understands that he is indeed holding documents. I think that Trump going on Fox and saying that he was simply shuffling around newspaper articles is disingenuous. So if this is the sort of evidence that Jack Smith has against Trump, I think it will be very compelling for a jury.
All right. I do have to ask you about the former president countersuing E. Jean Carroll for accusing him of raping her. Now, this may play to his base in the court of public opinion, but what about in a real court?
No, I mean, this is a countersuit. This is what Trump does. He does it for a few reasons. He files lawsuits oftentimes to control the narrative, which he is doing now. He also does it to delay accountability. And in this particular case, he is filing this as a countersuit because E. Jean Carroll filed another defamation claim after Trump's guilty verdict. He went on a national news program and went after her again. And so this is classic Trump.
We have seen his numbers take a hit, Caroline, since the indictments, amongst Republicans, but certainly with independents as well. You think this is finally a tide turning?
I don't. I think that Donald Trump, if you look at polling, he's still 2-1 ahead of DeSantis. And oftentimes, as the indictments come out, he'll get a little bump in the polls. I think we're seeing, a bit of a slide as people are seeing just the enormity of the evidence. But he has a core base that will not be shaken. And in fact, the more indictments come in, the more they will essentially see him as a martyr for the party.
All right, so much to discuss. We could always use more time, but we'll have to wait till next time. Caroline Heldman, professor of critical theory and social justice at Occidental College, thanks so much for joining us.
Great to see you, Giselle.